I've done like a lot of these interviews between back in the day with Open Red and doing this now with DIRTRACKR. And I think this is the second time ever that I've done an interview with someone literally at the racetrack with a racetrack in the background. So Austin Kirkpatrick live from the Florence Speedway as we talk about this, but it looks like it's going to be a lovely day there again in Florence.
Yeah, it's great. Weather's nice, and there was no service in our pit, so I walked out to the infield and found a few extra bars, and so this is the recording studio for the day.
I love it. I feel like you're a smart guy. Like we know how to design race cars. We're using AI. Like we're doing all of these things. I feel like you could have opportunities in NASCAR, in IndyCar, in sports cars. Why dirt late models?
That's a good question. I think from a vehicle standpoint, dirt racing is pretty unique and it's pretty interesting because there's a few key fundamental things that differentiates dirt cars from pavement cars, and there's a lot of literature on vehicle dynamics behind asphalt asphalt cars, and there's some, like I said, some key differences between the two, and it kind of throws traditional vehicle dynamics out the window in a lot of senses. And so it's almost like a new frontier. And so I feel like um, uh, anything racing on pavement is going to be gamed out a lot more closely, and it's just going to be like a function of how much engineering you can put in, and it's just a lot more at the optimization level. Whereas in dirt racing, I feel like there's a lot more stones to look under, a lot more rabbit holes to run down, and it's just a lot more fun. I mean, I used to race pavement late models back in the day, and whenever I'd go to the dirt track, I'm like, man, these cars are way cooler, and there's way more fans here. The purses are higher. It's way more fun to drive, and so I just kind of fell in love with it whenever I was driving personally, and so I've just been sticking around, I guess, and it's been a lot of fun to try to learn about and try to kind of move the ball forward.
I feel like you're somebody we don't see like a lot at the racetrack. Like you drive yourself, you bring a car out periodically, but you're always working on cars, right?
Yeah, so that's maybe one of my downfalls is I like being in the shop too much. Every day I go into the shop and we work nonstop trying to learn, trying to make cool stuff, trying to build. And I mean, it'd probably it'd probably be better for me if I went to the races more, if I spent more time making videos. But I have so much fun at the race car shop. I wake up every day like, man, it's crazy that I can actually make money doing this because I feel like I should be paying to do what I do because it's so much fun.
When you obviously we know that you announced that you are going to start kind of building your own production version of a dirt late model. When did you first start thinking about that could be a possibility? Like we know you've obviously been building cars for a long time, but when did the idea kind of first get in your head? Like, hey, I'm going to build a car that I can repeat and try to sell.
It's actually been the goal from day one. Um, I've always wanted to uh, build chassis, and I wanted to make a living in racing. And I mean, we've kind of got a master plan that's just been kind of like overarching, that's been guiding our decisions basically from the get go. I want to build like the the chassis company of all chassis companies, where we're building late models, we're building modifieds, we're building street stocks, we're building asphalt cars because they obviously all require the same tools, the same people, a lot of the same skill sets, and so it makes kind of sense to do all of that at the same time. But I mean, we kind of got kneecapped a little bit at the beginning of this journey because I thought we had a car that was really going to be something that was revolutionary, and it was going to kind of change the game and really springboard us into the spotlight. But that car got outlawed. It was a straight axle car I made back in the early 2020s, and so it kind of put a few year hold on everything as we kind of retooled up and re had to refigure some things out and make some new designs and make something that we're now pretty proud of that we're calling the Rev One now. And so I mean, to answer your question, it's been something that we've been thinking about for a long time. It's not like something that at the beginning of this year I'm like, I should try to make race cars and actually sell them. It's been something I've been wanting to do for a while.
Since you brought it up there, the straight axle car, you start a YouTube channel and your first video out the gate has now 600,000 views. I would imagine you're thinking, well, this YouTube stuff's pretty easy. But that car obviously is something that got you a lot of attention, and it gets outlawed. What has the reaction been that we haven't seen to that car, to that video from people in the sport, the other chassis builders, things like that?
I mean, it's just been extremely, extremely positive. I mean, usually you've got some degree of haters when you put yourself out there, but I mean, there's just the comments on that video, the people that come up to me at the racetrack. I mean, it's just overwhelmingly positive, and it seems like it really struck a nerve with people or struck a chord with people. Um, and it's yeah, it's just been a lot of positivity around that. Like you said, the video came. It I would have never imagined it did as well as it did. As you know, I mean, doing the whole YouTube thing is very difficult, and it kind of set the bar high for me. The next video I made, I was like, all right, cool. Well, I made this one video that got 600,000 views. I'm going to make another video that's going to get 600,000 views. And I think it got like 10. And so it was quite a drop off. But I think that video really did well just because the story was good. The editing and the sound quality and the video quality was pretty poor. If you listen to my new videos versus that video, like the straight axle video sounded like it was recorded on an iPhone driving around in my truck versus a studio quality mic. But it didn't. I mean, that stuff just doesn't matter. It's all about the story, and that story seemed to be one that people wanted to hear and wanted to see. And so video did really well. Obviously, since I was the one that made the video, I probably made it seem to be better than it was. I made the car seem better than it probably actually was. Um, I may have left out some of the parts where we struggled with it and accentuated some of the parts where it was really good. And so, um, but that's YouTube. You can kind of tell a story like you like, and it was it was the video was successful, and it was it kind of it just told the story of what actually went on behind closed doors, because it it was the whole project was like basically me in my shop for 2-3 years dicking around and kind of keeping everything a secret. And so to be able to kind of tell that story and it get the reaction it did was pretty fulfilling.
When you like put that video together with that car, like what are things that you learned during that process? Maybe like on the car side, but maybe also on the storytelling side that have kind of helped you as you launch the Rev 1 here more recently.
Um, it's a good question. I think I mean it taught me a little bit about the power of social media. Um, Taught me about on the car side. I mean, the car side we obviously learned a ton. Just doing things the way we did. Think the having the instant success that car had may have been a little bit of a blessing and a little bit of a curse. It kind of gave me a little bit of false sense of know-how. Like I thought, oh, okay, well I did all of this crazy stuff on this race car and it worked perfectly. Clearly, I know what I'm doing. But in reality, I think I may have got lucky on a few things that I didn't really take into consideration, and it took us a few years to kind of peel back the onion and figure out exactly what was going on and try to be able to repackage some things and try to learn what actually made that car go, and then also learn what makes the kind of traditional current cars go. And I mean, I think that if you if you tested my race car knowledge per se, uh, now versus what would have happened if the straight axle car never got banned, I would guess that it would be higher now, just because we were kind of forced to go back to work and go sure up some blind spots. And I think that in the end, it was probably productive that it got banned.
Kind of through this process, I wonder about um the animosity or the competition between the chassis builders. Like obviously we're at a point where we have like two big players and then like a bunch of smaller players. Like is everybody cool with each other? Does everybody play nice? Like does Mark Richards talk to you? Does Steve Arpin talk to you? Like what does that stuff look like between the builders?
I would say that I've got some good working relationships with some of the smaller builders. Uh, I think I think you hit the nail on the head. There's two main players, and then there's a bunch of kind of boutique chassis shops, and we're really trying to jump to number three as quickly as we possibly can. I think that there's kind of a few filters that you go through as a chassis manufacturer that kind of allows you to get to different tiers or different levels, and we're trying to kind of uh, we're trying to leapfrog to, and we're trying to kind of break through those filters as quickly as we can so that we can throw our name in the hat as a viable third option. Because like you said, there's really, I mean, out here there's two options, and Longhorn and Rocket have done a good job doing what they need to do to shore up the best drivers and to provide them with what they need from a support and a inventory standpoint. And uh, I think that that video that I made releasing my car got a lot of people talking, and it kind of primed a pump for me to be, or for us to be a another option. But there's just a little bit of, we just got to kind of put our money where our mouth is, and show that we've got the speed that's required to compete at the top level. And then I think it'll be kind of it'll throw our name in the hat even more firmly, and we'll be able to hopefully pick off some of these big guys. I think one of the, I mean, it's kind of a chicken and egg thing. To run really good at these big races, you got to have the best drivers. I mean, if my car's a tenth better than every car here, it's not going to matter if I don't have a guy that's capable of extracting that speed out of it. And I mean, the Ricky Thorntons and the Bobby Pierces and the Shepherds and the Davenports, those guys are just so good that they can, I mean, they can take a car that's maybe not absolutely perfect and still run up front with it. And so, um, to run good at the big races, you need the best drivers, and to get the best drivers, you need to run good at big races. And so we kind of have to figure out a way to break through that. And we've got this weekend, we're obviously at Florence at the North South. We've got Kyle Strickler driving the car. He's a super talented guy. He's got a bunch of really good people behind him with Charlie and G-Man and his cast of characters. And he's been really lighting it up on the modified scene lately. He hasn't been in a late model for a while, but he's got a lot of talent. He's run good in late models before. He was half lap from winning the COVID World 100 a few years ago, and he's won Lucas races, and he's been pretty successful whenever he's tried to make the leap over to the late model side. And so we're gonna, he feels like he's still got something to prove. I obviously feel like we got something to prove, and so I think we're gonna be a good match, and hopefully we can go shake things up a little bit.
I feel like we're at this point in time where there's like lots of just small builders. You got, guys that got a couple of customers, they got one customer, they build one car. Like, we saw Jimmy Owens kind of build his own car, then it gets crashed and then we don't see it again. Are there like steps that you're trying to get to, or are there like places that you need, like, whether benchmarks or something, like as a chassis builder to be like, okay, we're here now, we're not profitable, but now if we get one or two customers, we can get to profitability. Like, do you have like a plan laid out of like where you're trying to go, like when it comes to kind of like spreading this thing out?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm actually kind of getting a little bit humbled on this side. I mean, I thought that building the chassis business would be way easier than building the initial prototype and chassis, which I should have known better. I listened to enough Elon Musk videos to know that building one of something is usually an order of magnitude easier than building the machine that builds the machine. And so, we're building a chassis is it's not easy. It takes a lot of design work, takes a lot of effort, but building an organization and assembling a team of people, and getting the logistics and the supply side of things figured out, and getting all of the kind of business side parts of building a chassis figured out ends up being a lot harder than I thought. And so we're working through all those problems. I think that's probably why there's a big barrier to entry that you're kind of referring to, that keeps some of these smaller guys from kind of making that leap. It's because it's really hard. And even the customer service side's another tricky one that you've got to figure out how to manage. And it's I think that's probably why you see, a lot of these guys make a few chassis here and there and just kind of intentionally stay small, or not intentionally stay small. And then I think there's a big barrier that you got to break through, that Rocket and Longhorn have been able to successfully break through. And obviously some of the big chassis manufacturers of the past, the Rayburns and GRTs back in the day and Masterbuilt back in the day, those guys have been able to crack that code at one point. And so that's what we're kind of trying to put some numbers behind and try to really nail down what we need to do to be able to reach that level, and not only reach it but stay there.
Is there like, can you be small and still be profitable? Like, can you bootstrap your way to kind of success, or do you need outside investment? Like, do you need extra help to try to get to that scale before you can actually kind of maybe reach profitability?
I think you can probably bootstrap it. I think so. I talked to David Rudiman, who is an old NASCAR driver, and he builds beak built modifieds, and he made a pretty good point that you can make money from. I'm trying to remember the numbers. I think zero to 10 or 0 to 20 cars you can make money, and then you can make cars at 50 plus. And I think what he was kind of alluding to was at a certain point you have to like there's like a fundamental phase shift where you have to invest in. You're no longer working out of your garage with a few buddies. You have to put a shop together. You have to have employees. You got to have HR. You got to have marketing. You got to have a proper accounting system. And so all of those things that as soon as you start applying that overhead, it starts to kind of it takes away from the profitability maybe. And so I think that what we're trying to do is we're trying to go from that 20 to 50 mark as quickly as we possibly can. We're going to get pretty close to 20 cars this year, and I mean we're able to keep gasoline on the fire, and I think we're able to take some of the money that we're making and reinvest in new machinery and new tools and people, and I'm super happy about the route that the trajectory that the chassis companies is on right now. That video helped a lot. If we get a few more good runs in here before the end of the year, I think that'll be super important. But I think that I think that there's that would be. I think that what David was saying, it checks out, and I think that we just have to figure out. Well, I think that you can either stay under 20 and make some money, make a good living at it, but we're not trying to be a boutique race car chassis shop. We're trying to, you know, we're trying to go after these big guys, and we're trying to make a difference in the sport. And so to do that, we gotta to help the most amount of people, we have to sell the most amount of race cars. And so that's what we're gonna try to do.
Since you've announced it, since you put that video out, like, what has the reaction been? Like, do you have a lot of people calling you, coming up to you in the pit area? Like, have you sold a bunch of cars? Like, well, what does that look like over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, it's the after posting that video, I don't think I got out of my house for 3 days. It was just like consecutive, like phone call and phone call and phone call and for like literally 3 days. And it was cool to hear the positive reaction, but it was also super educational to hear from all of these people what they were having issues with or what they weren't happy with. And so it was also an opportunity for me to kind of um, reconcile what I thought the needs of the market were with what it seemed like the actual needs were. I thought, maybe I thought that some things were more desired by the market than others, and I got a lot of confirmation, but I also learned a few things in the process, and so we got some cars sold, which is good. Keeps it allows us to keep building and keep growing and keep you know adding gasoline to the fire, and so. I think there's a few guys that are definitely pretty recognizable that are going to be making the switch here pretty shortly, and that'll be cool to announce as it goes along. And we've got a lot of guys that are more more regional or crate guys that want to do something different, and so we'll be super interested in helping those guys and developing those programs as well. I think the crate market is something that's obviously there's a lot of crate cars, and there's a lot of limited kind of smaller division classes that in reality there's a lot more of those guys than there are touring national late model guys. And so being able to build a package and prove to those guys that we're interested in what they're doing, and we're building programs and packages for different types of different rule packages that helps those divisions as well is something that we're super interested in, and we're working pretty hard on our crate stuff as well, just to make sure that we can um, we can help the crate guys as much as we are the super guys.
You talking about that kind of brings me to like another question that I didn't even have on my list here. But when it comes to building cars for like those other divisions, like, obviously we don't expect a limited and a crate car to have the same setup as a super, but like, do you actually have to have like a different chassis for those guys based on what their needs are?
I don't think so. I mean, it's more of a, like you said, it's more of a setup thing, and there's nothing inherent about our car that would make it a better supercar than a crate car. It's just having the dials and the knobs in different spots. And so with a crate car, you're trying to optimize for a different set of problems. And so understanding what those problems are and understanding what levers we have to pull and how to use them in order to best get close or to get closest to the optimal solution within their rule set is what I feel like we're probably as good, if not better than some of these other guys. And so we to answer your question, I don't think you need a different chassis. Like you don't need to put weld tubes in different spots. You don't need to move suspension points around. You just need you're going to need obviously a different setup. You're going to need probably different shock package, different spring package, different geometry configurations, and uh, and that's just because in a crate car you're a lot more power limited. And so in a super you're almost never power limited, you're always traction limited. And so if you can get 1 pound of traction at the expense of 10 horsepower, you're almost, I mean, unless you're at Eldora or Knoxville or some of these really big racetracks, you're just going to take it every time. And that's why these cars are so massive and they have such crazy bodies on them to try to just get as much downforce and side force as you can. And the drag penalty you just don't care about because you've got 900 horsepower and you can blow the tires off whenever you want. So like in F1 racing, if your you took your Monaco car to Monza, you'd be going you'd get through the corners really quickly because you'd have a super high downforce package, but you get to the straightaway and you'd throw the boat anchor out, you'd be going 50 miles an hour slower because you just have too much drag. And so it's more of a compromise. And so that's what's kind of fun to think about on the crate side is it's more of a compromise. You have to balance out, okay, well, we've got these knobs we can turn that are going to give you more traction, but you if you give it too much traction and you give it too much downforce and too much side force, then you end up the drag penalty ends up being it ends up offsetting any gains you made. And so being able to work that compromise is actually kind of an interesting problem that you get to solve in a crate car that you don't have to worry about as much on a super. And so just understanding how all the bits and pieces work together, I think, is what gives us the ability, or gives anybody the ability to put together a better crate program or a better spec program compared to a super program.
I don't expect you to obviously reveal any of your secrets, but like, what can you say about what is different about your car versus what else is out there on the market?
I mean, there's definitely some knobs that we feel like we introduced that aren't currently being utilized. I think there's a lot, and people like you and a lot of people that are kind of commentators on the sport love talking about the secret stuff and love talking about all of the tricks and the trades and all of the things that go on behind closed doors because it makes for good content, it makes for good videos, good clickable taglines. But I think that the I think that the gimmicky snake oil stuff gets probably pushed a little bit too hard in our sport, and the magic shocks and the magic gizmos and magic gadgets. I mean, there's definitely speed to be found in some of these things, but a lot of it gets overblown. And I think that really, I mean, I I have a circle of friends that are pretty high level from a racing engineering standpoint. I've got people I talk to that are engineers in Cup, engineers in F1. I've got people that are engineers for jet companies. I've got a lot of people in my circle that are really really sharp people, and we spend almost no time talking about like what magic tricks we can come up with. It's all like super deep, high level vehicle fundamentals. Because I mean, if you were to introduce a magic trick that magically pushed one tire into the ground harder than the other tires, it would be at the expense of the other three. And so if you wanted more weight on one of the four tires, then we've got so many holes and knobs on current cars that we could do to do the same thing. And so like if we came up with some magical contraption that pushed the right front into the ground harder or pushed the left rear into the ground harder, it's always going to be at the expense of the other three. And so if that's something that we found was making the cars faster, we could just do it in a way within the rules. And so we definitely have some things on the car that I feel like make it slightly inherently better, and we're working on optimizing the setup to be able to leverage those things. But the I guess the way I think about it is like you've got different ceiling heights, and then it's about getting optimized within your potential. And so I think our car probably has a slightly higher ceiling due to some inherent things that we're doing, but having only having a few of them out there, we're slowly working on filling or getting all the way to the bottom of the ceiling. Whereas these other chassis, they're pretty much fully capped out. I mean, you've got thousands of Longhorns and Rockets and these other guys running around the country, moving things, changing things. Like there's no stones left unturned. They're pretty much as fast as they're going to get, as far as I can see. And then and so we just gotta get more cars out there and get keep testing and keep developing so that we can realize the advantages that we feel like we have.
And honestly, that was a question I was going to ask is like, when it comes to people like me or regular race fans, like, obviously there are lots of things we don't understand about these cars. And I feel like in terms of like, what's the magic stuff, the pit area doesn't help themselves in terms of us talking about it or not talking about it when you've got banners around the backs of cars and you've got boards hiding corners and things like that. But like, what do you see, like when you hear me talk about stuff or when you see stuff on social media, like what do you think that we don't understand about dirt late models?
It's a good question. I mean, they're really, really, really complicated in a lot of ways, and they're very, very simple in a lot of ways. But I think that uh, an an arrogance that I had when I first started was that there's a bunch of these things, like there's a bunch of stuff on these cars that are just on there because they've been there forever, and that it was just some redneck engineering that got slapped onto a race car, and there was lots of room for improvement. And that basically I just had to go out there and build something that was I just had to look at it with some and take the people I've got in my circle and kind of use some intelligence to make some things better. But it's not that. It's more so like everybody working together combined. And so, yeah, one person may not fully understand how one of these things work, me included. Like there's lots of blind spots I have, I'm sure, and there's lots of, I mean, I'm learning more and more every day, and so there's obviously lots of things that I don't know yet. But the fact that nobody needs to know exactly how they work, but combined as like as an entire like sport, they've got the car's pretty well figured out. And so if somebody stumbles upon something that works, and it stands the test of time and it works over a broad spectrum of different conditions, they'll have a small advantage and they'll go win races. And it's kind of like evolution. Like the things that work, they reproduce and they move on to the next generation, and the things that don't, they get they die off and they don't make it onto the next cut. And so via crew guys running their mouths, and via people switching teams, and via people seeing just visually what's different on different cars, what does work usually gets copied and gets implemented pretty quickly. And so like evolutionarily, the cars are going to be always trending in the faster direction. And the way I look at it is like in F1 racing, they come out with new rule sets every 5 years or so. And so race one, after a new rule set comes in, somebody will go out there and win by a minute because their guess of what would work best within that given rule set was best compared to everybody else. And then by the end of the rule set, everybody's converged on the optimum solution within the rule set, and they're all running within a few tenths of each other over like a 2 minute lap. It's just like their cars are all identical. And so in dirt racing, we're like 30 years into a rule set, and so we're all getting really, really close to the optimal set of solutions to the problem. And if you do come up with anything truly innovative and truly better, they're going to kneecap you when you roll into the pits, and they're not going to let it on the racetrack. And so it kind of limits innovation in some sense. And so we have to really like work hard on the fundamentals and work hard on things that people can't see and things that people can't tech to try to come up with an advantage. And it makes it way more difficult than if they were just if it was still the Wild West like it was in the 80s and 90s. But it kind of it makes it increases the barrier to entry, and to kind of overcome that, it just requires more work and more understanding and more resources and more testing. And so that's I feel like there's if the current paradigm remains the way it is, there's probably not going to be too many more entrants into dirt late model chassis building just because of the things I just talked about.
I want to talk about kind of the broader dirt late model world a little bit. And I feel like you're a good one to ask about this kind of because you're not at these places. But and I get asked this all the time, like, what is really different between like a Rocket and a Longhorn? Like, why do we see Brandon Shepherd start at Rocket? He goes really fast and he goes to Longhorn, does well, but like not as well as he'd been doing, then comes back to Rocket and is now trying to build his way back up. Like, what is really different among the cars?
They're a lot the same. There's a few small differences from a geometry standpoint, from a chassis construction standpoint, and so I think that basically what ends up happening is the cars just have windows that they work in um, that overlay a certain set of conditions, and then another. So, like, let's say there's one chassis company that has a window here, and there's one chassis company that has a window here. Whenever the track conditions kind of line up more with this set of um, with the first chassis window of operation, those guys are usually running better. Or if the racetrack is more tailored towards the set of conditions over here, the other chassis companies will run better. And so it's the window that the cars work best is not perfectly overlapped, and so there are some conditions that some are going to do better in than others, and I think that that's kind of what we've tried to put some science behind, is trying to figure out how to make that window as big as possible and shift it around when needed. And so I think that's to blame a little bit for why some guys do well, and like the driver's skill set or their preferences also impact where in the window that car is. And so I think some cars just line up better for how some people drive. You definitely see some people get in cars that are running good at the time and not run any better than they were in the old car. And so I think driver preference has a lot to do with it. I think that the cars have different operating windows, and who can get their windows the biggest and who can get their windows kind of centered over the most amount of racetracks is super important. And I think that's probably that explains most of it. And then there's just a lot of just randomness factor that comes into play. Like there's definitely some in dirt racing, everybody's so close that hill draw has a big influence on how your night goes. I mean, if the racetrack slows off throughout the night or throughout qualifying and you get a good pill draw, you're going to get a tenth or two on the guys that are going out later. And if you've got a pretty lightly loaded qualifying group, or if you've got a group that you're going out first in and all the good guys are going out at the end, then you're just going to have a small baked in advantage, and then you're going to start in the front row of a heat, which makes it easier to win your heat. And then you start up front in the race, and it makes it easier. You're not going to win one of these races starting 15th anymore. You have to be starting pretty close to the front. So I think just the randomness element of dirt racing kind of shakes things up and keeps different people winning races, because there are so many good drivers and there are so many good race cars out there right now that a lot of what determines who wins that night is just circumstance.
I had a friend who works in dirt late model racing. As we've been kind of watching, the last several weeks with Rocket, go from the 1.2 to now this Rocket 2 version. Tell me that racers are like drug addicts, and the car builders are the dealers,
Mm-hmm.
and they're always trying to keep up and have the next thing. Do you feel that way? Do you view it that way? Like, what do you think about those comments?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely resonate some with it. For a long time, I thought the snake oil problem was on the supply side. There was just a bunch of people just pushing things to try to make money, and pushing get magic tricks and get rich quick scheme equivalents to race cars to try to take advantage of poor dirt racers. But I think in reality the issue's more on the demand side. Racers, just like you're saying, they desperately want that magic trick. They desperately want to go faster. They desperately want to win races. And so if you've got somebody saying, "Hey, I've got this thing that if you bolt on your car, it's going to make you go win races," they're going to trip over themselves to try to buy it. So I think uh, it's a tough one, because people, I mean, people want that stuff, and it's something that is craved by the market. But unfortunately, just like anything, the magic trick is working really hard, understanding things at the deepest level you can, and go stepping up to the batter's box repeatedly, and keep going to bat, and never give up. That's the magic trick. And you tell somebody that, then they're like, oh, I'll try this diet pill first. Um, and rather than going to the gym and working really hard and exercising and eating healthy. And so um, it's it's something I've been kind of toiling with, trying to figure out how to balance that, because if you don't sell it, then they're not going. I mean, it's one of those things, like if you tell people it's not about the snake oil, it's not about the magic tricks, it's about working hard in fundamentals. They're like, oh well, you just don't have the magic tricks, then I'm going to go over here. And so it's definitely something that's a it's a phenomenon that's very prevalent in the sport, and trying to figure out how to manage that is something we spent some time doing. But we're just on our side, we're really focused on understanding things to the best that we can, making the best products that we can, and trying to educate our customers so that they know how these things work, and they can make adjustments and make changes for themselves, and they can learn, and they can get better. Because at the end of the day, that's what as a chassis company, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help people run better than they were. We're trying to help them have more of their best days at the racetrack. And so to do that, I think that the long-term answer is help educate and help provide them with the necessary resources and intel to be able to go to the racetrack, get their cars dialed in as quickly as possible, and then um, run as well as they possibly can with what they've got. And if you do that enough time, you're just going to inherently win more races.
So when we're talking about, like, and you mentioned this word repeatability in your Rev 1 announcement video, and you hear about guys getting cars from different manufacturers. XYZ sells them a car, and they say, like, oh, this one was better than one I got from before, this one is worse than one I got from before. And I remember hearing that kind of same thing when I worked in NASCAR. The different cars that came off the jig would feel different, or race different. We got Jonathan Davenport that's got his special Eldora car. But is that a real thing that you deal with as a chassis builder? And like, what are the steps, if it is real, what are the steps that you can, kind of put in place to make it so that all of the cars that come out of your shop are as the same as possible?
Yeah, so I definitely think it's a pretty big deal. I mean, these guys all go race all over the country, and they kind of develop a notebook for a race car. And if you have a bunch of settings and parameters that you have built for a race car, and then you go change individual pieces of it, then those notes aren't going to line up, and they're not going to provide the same result. And so I think, I mean, if you have everything the same, and then you move a shock mount a little bit, or if you move some critical suspension point a little bit, then it's going to just change the handling balance of the race car if you leave all other things else the same. And so it may be as easy as just recalibrating whatever got changed, and moving a spring nut, or moving lengthening or shortening a bar to get things back to where they were. But that's a finding a needle in the haystack adventure that most people aren't willing to go through, and they shouldn't have to go through. And so we put a lot of effort into making sure that all of our chassis roll out with all of the critical points being identical, and so that you can go develop a notebook and then buy another car and put all of those same parameters and settings onto the new car, and it be exactly the same. And so there's obviously a lot of science behind that, and there's from a jigging standpoint and from a processes standpoint, that's something that is super important to get nailed down, so that people feel comfortable that they can build on your platform. And so we've went through some pretty great lengths to try to mitigate the issues that we see with how people are currently building cars. And I mean, welding is just a really, really it's a difficult process, and it puts a lot of stress on the materials. If you just took like a 20-foot rod and you welded another rod at a 90-degree joint at the middle, it's just going to bow both ends up. And that happens no matter which welder you use. It's going to happen no matter which, what wire, what gas, what everything you use. And so coming up with a process that really takes as much of the variables out of play as possible, and then also doing what we can to uh, allow the points to remain the same no matter what happens from the distortion standpoint is something that we've spent a lot of time on, and so I feel pretty confident that our cars are the most repeatable and are on the front end. We spent a lot of design time making sure that we were going to be settled on a chassis design before we started mass producing them, and so we didn't want to run into an issue where we built a car, we went and sold it to a bunch of people, and then we changed it a year later and basically obsoleted all of our customers and forced everybody to get something new. And so we spent a lot of time on the front end making sure that we could stick to the design that we were putting out there, and that we weren't going to have to make any changes, and so that we could build upon the platform, and that we could start to develop and build on that rather than having to change the platform.
How quickly, like when you go from just a pile of tubing, like how quickly can you actually have a full chassis built?
And so what our current plan is we're optimizing one cell of production. And so from beginning to end, it takes us about probably 2 weeks from first tube in the jig to car going out the door. And then we can still squeeze some more time out of that and get it lower. There's a few processes that take a little bit longer than they should that we're still trying to dial in. But um, as soon as we get the one cell dialed in, which is kind of our stage one of our chassis company, then we just start adding cells. And so it'll be easy if we can just hypothetically get that cell, to make math easy, if we can get that cell down to one car a week, then that means we'll be able to build one car every 52 weeks, right? And then if we need to build more than 52 cars, we just add a cell. And and so it becomes a lot easier to scale and unscale as demand goes up and down, if we understand and we have just different cells that we can optimize. And so I think you could probably, I mean, there's only so fast it's or there's only so much speed you can extract out of that process. There's things that have to get done. You obviously have to cut all the tubes out. You have to put them in the jig. You have to weld them all together. Then you have to get it powder coated, and then do all the body construction and assembly work required to get the car to pretty much a complete roller. And that takes, it's just going to take a given amount of time. And if you do all those processes in series, then they just all add up. And so we're trying to, within the cell, get as many series or as many processes working in parallel, so that it's not necessarily additive. You're overlapping some of it a little bit to try to have multiple things going on at once and try to get that cycle time down. But if I think that's I like these guys these chassis companies that can quote unquote build one car a day. Like, yeah, one car is leaving every day, but it's not like they're going from the the metal rack to out the door in a day.
When you are like repairing a car, is it the same process? Like you just cut off the bad stuff and then build it back the same way you would build a chassis, like from the start, or is it a different process?
It's pretty similar. We have some different fixtures that we use for repair work. Our tolerances are really tight on our production jig, and so like if you tweak the car a little bit, it's just not going to fit in the jig. And so you're not going to, like, if you bend the front clip and the rear clip, you're just not going to be able to. If you were able to cram the center section in, the front and rear clip wouldn't line up, and so it'd be hard to diagnose exactly what you needed to fix. And so we've got a different set of fixtures that we use, that have just a little bit more play and allow us to um, visually see what got off or what's bent, so that we can repair those parts specifically, rather than having to just scrap the whole thing per se, which people aren't doing, but would, if we were sticking it back in our production jig, it wouldn't line up. And so the repair process is, it's pretty much as simple as cutting out the bad parts and putting new parts in. If you do a good job um, welding the pieces back together, there should be no inherent difference between a clipped car and a not clipped car. Um, it really should be, it should be identical. All the pieces are going to be in the exact same spot, and the joints should be the exact same as they were prior to getting the car clipped. And so I there's a lot of voodoo and black magic behind cars that are straight versus new versus, well, cars that are new versus cars that have been racing that have been clipped. And so I think we've tried to do what we can to just make sure that they're all good.
One of the other things you talked about in your announcement video was like using more technologically advanced tools, like using, obviously you CAD drew everything, and you talked about using AI to help iterate on parts. AI is such a buzzword these days. Like I feel like everything is AI now, but like what can you really use? What can you really use AI for on a dirt late model?
So it's I mean, as the tool develops, its capability and how it can help on the dirt side is going to develop. I think from a design standpoint, it's super useful. As I kind of outlined in the video, we were using it a lot on just optimization of different parts and um, asking it some more holistic questions on different strategies and use. I mean, it's as I mean, it's so useful and it's getting so well trained that I mean it's got just such a breadth of knowledge and a way of conveying it that makes it easy to digest. I mean it doesn't really have any more information than say like a Google when it comes to just like the language models, but it goes and scrapes all of the information and feeds it to you in a way that's digestible and that's easy to it's consolidated. And so like rather than saying like, oh, okay, well what what are the optimal welding settings that I should be using for this material, this welding wire, this welder, and going and digging through a Miller or a Lincoln process manual and trying to figure out what all of these what settings you should be using, or that's just a silly example, but I mean it'll just spit it out to you because it looked at that already. And so but from the design standpoint, the iterative or the generative design that we use is pretty powerful and pretty cool. And then we also use it a lot on the data analysis side. And so we probably, I think we probably acquire more data than anybody. We test with data all the time, and using that as a tool to help analyze the data has been very, very helpful and very useful. It's the original language models weren't very good at math, and so um, that was kind of a barrier on that front because obviously analyzing the data requires a decent bit of math. And so now that the data is getting better, or the language models are getting better at math, it's getting a lot more useful. And so I think I think that AI is, like you said, it's probably blown out of proportion to some extent, but we really lean on it pretty hard, and we want to be the industry leader on the AI front because we feel like it's just going to get smarter and smarter. And if we have a little bit of a head start on everybody, then I feel like we're just going to continue to grow that head start. We're going to continue to grow that advantage and be able to leverage that tool. And then one other thing that it's kind of a that's more of a advantage that I feel like we have that isn't really AI related is that the language models are only as good as the data that they're trained on. So, luckily for us, there's not that much good literature on dirt racing. This kind of goes back to what I was talking about at the beginning of our conversation. There's a few puzzle pieces that kind of live in the heads of a few people that aren't really put out there, that aren't really um, well explained maybe in on any technical articles or any message boards or any Facebook posts or anything that these language models are trained on. And so you go ask ChatGPT how to make your dirt car faster, how to fix a handling ailment, and it gives you some terrible answer. And so I think that's really um, an insight into the lack of good literature on dirt late model vehicle dynamics. And so having kind of some of those pieces of the puzzle figured out and insourced kind of helps us put pieces together in a way that other people may not be able to. And so I feel like we've got, you know, you see a lot of articles about like what jobs AI is coming to replace. And I think that at least for a little bit, I think dirt racing is pretty safe for a little while, just because like the language models have no training data to look at, and so they're just not going to be able to really figure dirt racing or figure dirt late models out at a really deep level because there's just no information for it to go after. And so we're using some of those things that we feel like that we've figured out to um, we're kind of keeping it offline, I guess you would say, so that because I think as soon as that stuff does start getting more published, then the AI language models will start to figure out how to make dirt cars or how to provide more useful setup information quicker. And so that's just I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out over the next few years. But we want to definitely try to be on the leading side of that revolution and not the trailing side.
I know you're a Formula One fan. I'm a huge Formula One fan as well. And in that sport, if the car isn't fast, it doesn't matter what driver you have. You're not going to win races. You're not going to win the championship. In dirt
Mm-hmm.
late model racing, how much can a driver elevate a race car?
I mean, I think me and you both know that the Red Bulls this year are pretty lackluster, and Max Verstappen is uh, extracting more speed out of his cars than anybody else, and is able to still put that thing on the occasional podium. And so I would say that even in F1, driver makes a pretty big deal, but I think in dirt racing, it's an even bigger deal because the track is so variable. It's you're constantly having to search for the best line, and the people that are able to uh, to continually do that faster and do that more strategically are just going to be they're going to be able to extract more performance out of their car. I mean, I think that these top level guys, I think that you could probably ride swap almost all of them, and they'd probably still finish in a similar position. I think the biggest differentiating factor right now in dirt racing is the driver. I think that's something I didn't think in the past. I used to think it was mostly car and some driver, but these cars are all getting so good and so close that the differentiating factor is, like I kind of talked about earlier, it's a lot of just situational stuff, and then it's also who's driving better. And so I think some of these really good guys are just like they're just squeezing a little bit of speed out of these things, and they're able to find the fastest line, maybe a half a lap or a lap sooner than the next best guy, and it all just translates to if you just stack up enough half tenths and tenths, it ends up being seconds by the end of a 100 lap race, and the difference between first and 10th place is seconds. And so um, I think that drivers do really move the needle right now in dirt racing. I think that these guys are literally the best drivers in the world. I mean, F1 guys are really good, NASCAR guys are good. There's a lot of good road course guys, but just the sheer amount of reps that dirt guys get compared to those guys is just it's not even in the same ballpark. And then the quantity of drivers we have is just we're inherently going to have um, the likelihood that we find the best talent is going to be higher than like say F1 where you have a lot of nepotism and you have a lot of it's a lot of pay to play. And so like the odds that you're a really good driver and you have enough money to fund an F1 team is pretty low, whereas in dirt racing it's a lot more meritocratic where you've got guys that if they just show that they can if they show talent at a young age, if they show talent in some of the lower ranks of dirt racing, then they're going to be given opportunities, or it's much more likely that they'll be given an opportunity compared to other forms of racing. And so I feel like the likelihood that the top level rises to the top and that it's developed to the point that they are fully fully optimized and that they like I said, the amount of reps that they get. I mean, a NASCAR season's 30 something races, and F1 races like 20 something races, and you've got guys that run 100, like literally over 100 races a year here. And so the amount of conditions that they're exposed to and the amount of reps that they get, it's just unparalleled compared to any other form of racing. And so I make the argument all the time that these guys are the best race car drivers in the world. And I think that, it really shows up when you've got some of these guys that go off and win a bunch of races that they're just slightly better and they're just figuring out things that other people aren't able to figure out. I mean, maybe they do have some things figured out on the race car, but I would hazard a guess that a lot of what determines where you're finishing, uh, especially when the racetrack is as racy as a racetrack like this place, the cream's just going to rise to the top on the driver's standpoint.
Two questions, and then we can wrap this up. First one, how many times has another builder tried to hire you?
Um, it's not as much as I would have thought, actually. I think a lot of people think that I'm kind of not for hire, that I just kind of mess around in the garage, and what I'm doing is that I'm not looking for a job, and I think that not to. I mean, I think that there's probably only two chassis companies that could afford to hire me, and so those two haven't reached out, and so I think that's that's basically what it boils down to. I don't think that kind of like what I was alluding to earlier. There's just a lot of um, there. Most of the guys are kind of in that 0 to 20 race car range, and you can't afford a full time engineer race car designer guy um, on the payroll and be able to be profitable if you're only making, you know, 20 cars a year. And um, so yeah, I guess that answers the question.
And are you done driving?
I don't know. I mean, I'll definitely jump in here and there. I, uh, I do like driving, and I really enjoy testing a lot. And um, but kind of going back to what I was just saying, these guys are the best in the world, and even if I was like mega talented, which I'm probably not, the just sheer lack of reps that I get, and I mean, if I race 10 times a year, I'm showing up at a massive disadvantage to the rest of these guys, and so I really enjoy the designing, the building, the tinkering, the thinking, all of the non-driving sides of the sport so much that driving to me was almost like tire grinding. Like it was just something that had to get done that, if I was the only one that could do it, then yeah, I would do it, but it's something I'd rather not do. And so, well, not I'm not gonna say I'd rather not do it, but it's just kind of a job required to field a race team. And so if I can outsource that to somebody that I feel like is better, that has more experience, that has more talent, that can squeeze more speed out of the race car, then it's something then that's something I'm willing to do. I try not to have a big enough ego that it's a my way or the highway thing, or that I'm gonna run the team into the ground because I'm so dead set on driving that I disadvantage the team. And so I'd much rather run good and do the stuff that I feel like I am really good at, and let somebody else worry about the driving. But I'm sure I'll get the edge here, and not I'm not fully retired. I'm not hanging up the helmet per se, but I'm definitely not going to be trying to race 30, 40 times a year or anything like that.
Well, I'm sure you have a lot of work to do. I appreciate you taking some time out of a busy race weekend to talk to us, and yeah, go kick their ass this weekend.
Thanks, man. Likewise, I always appreciate watching the videos that you put out, and you do a bunch of good work, and it's an honor to be on the show.